items, these 18 items combine to form a gradual process by which real knowledge can be developed. Except for these, all other methods are considered to be in the category of nescience. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, a great acharya, maintained that all forms of material knowledge are merely external features of the illusory energy, and that by culturing them, one becomes no better than an ass. This same principle is found here in Sri Isopanishad. By advancement of material knowledge, modern man is simply being converted into an ass. Some materialist, some materialistic politicians in spiritual guise decry the present system of civilization as sanatic, but satanic. But unfortunately, they do not care about the culture of real knowledge as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, they cannot change the satanic situation.
Okay.
So,
We'll see the meaning of that song. See the song Vidya Vilas. So we'll read this stanzas. So with great enthusiasm, I spent my time in the pleasures of mundane learning and never worshipped your lotus feet, O Lord. Now you are my only shelter. Yeah, for to everyone and maybe for few people, the mundane learning, no, it gives uh, lot of curiosity, thrill in some way, learning new things. Uh, to some extent, like no chemistry, you hear some chemical reaction and you see you perform it in the lab, or maybe computer science, you you get a problem and you write a program for it, you debug errors and make the program work. So so there is some kind of pleasure in mundane learning, so that is there. Reading on and on, my hopes grew and grew. And also, once one may be praised for their learning, one may become successful, and one gets recognized in the society. So that is also there. Especially means in the times when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was writing the song, and even older times, ancient times, that is more praised. A person with great knowledge is more praised than a wealthy person. But now, of course, the society has changed. People who are beautiful, who are charismatic, and who speak nicely, or they are more praised. Reading on and on, my hopes grew and grew, for I considered the acquisition of material knowledge to be life's true goal. How fruitless those hopes turned out to be. Now also, if you see, uh, of course, having a good degrees and having more skills is considered profitable. Means no, we can get higher package. So now also it is seen to some extent, though it may not be so much recognized, but in some ways one can earn more wealth if one has more knowledge. How fruitless those hopes turned out to be, for all my knowledge proved feeble. Yeah, means now when person becomes old, then the knowledge doesn't help. Means if he has acquired knowledge for recognition and all, so that will be temporary, that will be there for some years and all. When the person becomes old and all, the memory also, he may not remember the knowledge also properly, the intelligence will get reduced and all. So then that will not give him happiness. And especially if he wants to do devotional service that time, so then uh, that knowledge becomes a more obstacle. All the so-called knowledge of this world is born of the flickering potency of your illusory energy, Maya. It is an impediment to the execution of devotional service to you. Yeah. Because as we saw in the last verse, the whole mundane education, it it says how the material happiness is all in all, and the material endeavors for getting material happiness is only the worthy thing in life, like that they do all that. So now one has a deeply uh, understood, means one goes deeply into that. Now again, to come to devotional service, first he has to unlearn that, and then only he can learn devotional service. Like if someone has done, let's say, PhD on, Darwin's theory, or so theory of evolution and all. So for him to learn the Vedic model of, reincarnation, evolution of soul, first he has to unlearn. Means first he has to understand how Darwin's theory is wrong. It is only incomplete knowledge, and to some extent incorrect, like that. Uh, so first he has to do that, and then he can see, he'll be in a position to learn the correct thing of Vedic model, etc. So, so the more one acquires the science and one more believes it and, goes deep into it, uh, it becomes more, it becomes all the more difficult to accept devotional service. Indulgence in mundane knowledge verily makes an ass of the eternal soul by encouraging his infatuation with this temporary world. Yeah. So because it is temporary, means the happiness that one can get through mundane education is temporary. So the whole effort, one thinks that one will be happy forever. But as one becomes old, that happiness that comes from mundane education wanes out. So then it is only for very few, maybe 20 years, 30 years, it may stay. After that, again, one will be there to square one. So he has to do something else to become happy in the old. Here is one person who has been turned into such an ass, who for so long has carried on his back the useless burden of material existence. Now, in my old age, for want of the power to enjoy, I find that nothing at all pleases me. Life has now, and modern education, because it is telling how material pleasure is everything. So, because of modern education, one will develop so many desires also. And one, as one becomes old, so all those desires also he cannot fulfill. He cannot eat. He cannot eat too much. He cannot eat. He cannot digest very tasty foods like sweets, and also, and he cannot go easily travel to some other places, to, tourist places and all. So all these things, so that way also he suffers. Life has now become, now in my old days, for want of the power to enjoy, I find that nothing at all pleases me. Life has now become agony, for my so-called erudite knowledge has proven itself to be worthless ignorance. Worthless ignorance. Material knowledge has now become a pointed shaft and has pierced my heart with the intolerable burning pain of ignorance. O Lord, there is no treasure worth seeking in this world other than your lotus feet. Bhaktivinoda abandons all his mundane knowledge and makes your lotus feet the sum and substance of his life. Okay. Yeah, so material knowledge occupies too much space, and in the ultimate sense, it is not useful. Even in life, also, after some stage of life, it will become useless. Mataji, you can read in the modern society.
In the modern society, even a boy thinks himself self-sufficient and pays no respect to elderly men. Due to the wrong type of education being imparted in our universities, boys all over the world are giving their elder headaches. Thus, Sri Isopanishad very strongly warns that the culture of nescience is different from that of knowledge. The universities are, so to speak, centers of nescience only. Consequently, scientists are busy discovering lethal weapons to wipe out the existence of other countries. University students today are not given instructions in the regulative principles of brahmacharya, celibate student life. nor do they have any faith in any scriptural injunctions. Religious principles are taught for the sake of name and fame only, and not for the sake of practical action. Thus, there is animosity not only in social and political fields, but in the field of religion as well.
Yeah. Yeah, animosity means there is no common center. Selfishness is thought. They only teach about animosity. Yeah. This modern education and even the so-called motivational speakers, they promote a lot about skepticism about authority. They say, why don't follow anything blindly, don't just make yourself dependent on someone. So they say things like that, encourage questioning. So they encourage, you should always question everything, and you should know why you should do and all. And then they also give the false confidence that you can become your own authority, you can decide everything by yourself and all. So in that way, they indirectly they encourage rejecting authority. Whereas Vedic education, it emphasizes on following the authority, but not blindly following. It also tells who is the right authority, who can be the right authority, and what is the process to follow the right authority. What is following the authority? What is right and wrong in following the authority? In what sense you should not follow? When you should stop following? All those things. And the right move to inquire from authority. And if you follow wrong authority, what will happen? These all things are explained in the Vedic education. It's not, it just prescribes following any authority and blindly. So it educates also on how to follow, and then it also shows who is the right authority. Yeah. But modern education, it says anyone who tries to take an authority position is wrong, and so that is wrong. So as a result, what happens? It's like just do it culture means no, whatever you feel good, do. So because people lack purpose in life, they lack focus in life and all, and they feel insecure also, because if everything one only has to do himself, if every decision one has to do himself, and he doesn't want to take anyone's support, then it creates a lot of anxiety and insecurity, etc. And then yeah, this live-in relationship, they don't want to follow the system of marriage. And yeah, even the toxic feminism is also one example. Yeah, okay, we will watch a video on this.
The three most annoying words in the English language. Kids these days. Either you've said this phrase before, or it has been thrown your way. But in all likelihood, both cases are true. Because this is only natural. People complain about those younger than them. It is a cycle of life. Researchers call it the kids these days effect. Creative, I know. Now, this effect is in full swing because Gen Z, or those born between 1997 and 2012, has entered the workforce. People say the young ask for too much but work too little. They don't respect hierarchies. They don't want to pay their dues, and they always have one foot out the door. Plus, they despise skinny jeans, which, let's face it, is half the millennial wardrobe. And this is not too far off. More members of Gen Z are entering the C-suite. Don't worry, the average age of the CEO is still 54, but the number of young CEOs is on the rise. And what's on their agenda? Few meetings, fewer email chains, and lots of emojis. This generation, you see, grew up with technology, so they're using it to make life simpler. Instead of holding meetings, they're sending voice notes. Instead of using words, they're using emojis and GIFs. Plus, Gen Z workers love flexibility. Some hate cabins or desks. Some don't want to show up to work. Some despise fixed working hours. A quarter of Gen Z say their productivity peaks at night. That's when they want to work. But less than 15% of the older generations log on after 6 p.m. So that's quite the conundrum. But Gen Z want workplaces to be more casual. The young are more open to talking about mental health. They want to discuss political opinions, and they despise formal email sign-offs. So they're saying goodbye to professional language. 41% workers say yours truly is dying, and 36% claim yours sincerely has been given a death sentence. And lukewarm regards are taking their place quite literally. It is no wonder that 3 in 4 managers find it difficult to work with Gen Z. Many complain of walking on eggshells, like they can't speak their mind, because one argument and their young employee is out the door. At least that's the impression. Because Gen Z is thinking differently about loyalty. For young workers, job hopping has lost its stigma. In fact, they are willing to change careers thrice. That's blasphemous to boomers, and it can hurt careers. Sure, work life is slowly changing, but some perceptions still persist. Repeatedly switching jobs is a red flag for traditional employers. So is informality. Many young workers want to be themselves, so they communicate casually or express political views non-stop, but this may not sit well with all companies. Workers still have professional responsibilities, there are certain expectations, and studies show that poor communication can stall career progress. Yes, some things are worth fighting for, but if every battle seems worthwhile, then you ought to rethink. I guess the smart approach is to be pragmatic, and this applies to older workers as well. Working with Gen Z poses its challenges, as it should, but they are the future of work. By next year, Gen Z will form a quarter of the global workforce. They will shape hiring, they will shape workplace trends, they will influence technology, public policy, clothes, food, all of it. In short, they will change how companies function. So ignoring the divide between the young and the old is not an option. It is time we rethink our perceptions and find a middle ground by balancing formality with approachability and tasks with relationships. It is not about changing who you are, it is about adapting.
Yeah, that shows how, because of modern education, how there is widespread rejection of authority, hierarchies, etc. Mataji, you can continue. Nationalism has developed.
Nationalism has developed in different parts of the world due to the cultivation of nescience by the general people. No one considers that this tiny earth is just a lump of matter floating in immeasurable space along with many other lumps. In comparison to the vastness of space, these material lumps are like dust particles in the air. Because God has kindly made these lumps of matter complete in themselves, they are perfectly equipped with all necessities for floating in space. The drivers of our spaceships may be very proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of these greater, more gigantic spaceships called planets.
Yeah, just a minute. Yes, Swati Mataji, you have any question?
In the previous paragraph, there is one toxic feminism. So I couldn't understand what it means. This toxic
Means basically, yeah, toxic is like, yeah, so yeah, means making a judgment that every woman should know, should live freely and should work. That is, it may be a need of some particular woman and all, and yeah, they should be allowed. But it's not like every woman should work. Some may be happy being a homemaker, being a mother, etc. That's
yes,
means,
thank you.
okay, thank you. And also the way they dress and all, no? Yeah, you should show off, you should reject the tradition. That is toxic. Yeah. Okay, so means Prabhupada is now explaining the problems which the nescience or the materialistic education which is current is creating. The first Prabhupada told about the rejection of authority, etc. And now Prabhupada is telling about nationalism. So, so nationalism means having a national identity, but with the purpose of sense gratification. So it is different from patriotism. Patriotism means we are together and we benefit the nation in a positive way, in a selfless way, etc. But nationalism means we come together as a country and we enjoy, and that it can be like at the cost of other countries suffering, other people suffering, etc. So that is nationalism. Nationalism is a selfish, maybe a collective sense gratification, and patriotism is little more. It's a sattvic thing. Nationalism is more passionate and tamasic. And now Prabhupada is explaining philosophically that how that all God means, that all the planets and all these are all made by God. So we should recognize God's supremacy, God's controllership, and so we should obey God instead of dividing the world into nations and fighting with each other. Yeah. Of course, Prabhupada is saying the drivers of spaceships may be proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of this greater, more gigantic spaceships called planets. See, yeah, if planets like we never say recently a spaceship malfunctioned and two astronauts were stranded in space for so many months, and so much effort is again being made to bring them back. So, but it never happened. No, that moon malfunctioned and did not rise some night, or so it doesn't happen like that. Yes, Matas, you can continue. There are innumerable suns.
There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also, as infinite small parts.
Your voice is not clear. There are innumerable. You can read it.
Yes, yes. Now it is clear, Prabhuji?
Yeah, now it is better.
Okay. There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also, as infinite small parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord. These small creatures are trying to dominate these unlimited planets. Thus, we take repeated birth and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. The span of human life is scheduled for about a year, about 100 years, although it is gradually decreasing to 20 or 30 years. Thanks to the culture of nescience, befooled men have created their own nations within these planets in order to grasp sense enjoyment more effectively for these few years. Such foolish people draw up various plans to render national demarcations perfectly, a task that is totally impossible. Yet for this purpose, each and every nation has become a source of anxiety for others. More than 50% of a nation's energy is devoted to defense measures and thus spoiled. No one cares for the cultivation of real knowledge, yet people are falsely proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge.
Yeah. So nation, like every people want a separate identity, because if let's say given a state is people in the state, they pay tax to the central government, so they have to pay tax to the central government, and that will not get may not get used to for their welfare, maybe used for someone else welfare in the country. But if they become a separate nation, so then they can enjoy their own wealth. So that is this is nationalism, means it is selfish, it is materialistic, and it does not take God into picture. Yeah. And then Prabhupada is now talking about defense measures. Like, so everyone wants to protect, everyone wants to fight for more land, more resources, or and they want to also defend resources and all. And the whole purpose is for sense gratification. That is the main problem. Okay, we will see some more videos on that.
Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and not clothed. These are the words of Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was the 34th President of the United States of America. Eisenhower also said this in 1953.
The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 population. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It is some 50 miles of concrete pavement. We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people.
Later in his presidency, Eisenhower would issue a dire warning, a warning about the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He described it as a threat to democracy. He raised concerns about the costs of an arms race with the Soviet Union, how it would take away resources from other developmental projects, like building schools and hospitals. Half a century later, the Soviet Union has died. Now one man has begun a quest to revive it: Vladimir Putin. He is waging war in Ukraine. The last 2 months have been described as the darkest hours in Europe since World War II. The invasion began in February. Over 2 months have passed. Who is winning this war? The military-industrial complex. Not Russia, certainly not Ukraine. They're caught in what we call a frozen conflict. It's the defense companies and contractors who are winning this war. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and tonight we'll tell you about the players who would not want wars to end. The global arms bazaar is controlled by a handful of big players. From 2016 to 2020, the United States, Russia, France, China, the United Kingdom and Germany exported 80% of the world's weapons. Barring China, every country on this list is directly involved in the Ukraine conflict. Russia is the aggressor. The US, the UK, France and Germany are all arming Ukraine. And by the way, out of these 6 countries, 5 are permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. So much for their commitment to international peace and security. But there's one country that maintains a towering presence in the global arms bazaar, and that's the United States of America. It accounts for 37% of the global exports. And this makes the US the biggest exporter of major weapons. Why does the US dominate this market? Because it is home to the top 5 manufacturers in the world: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and General Dynamics. All 5 are American companies. Together, they sold more than $160 billion worth of weapons in 2019. As they say, war is good for business. So when Russia's war in Ukraine began, the stock prices of American defense companies soared. Shares of Raytheon shot up by 8%, General Dynamics 12%, Lockheed Martin 18%, and Northrop Grumman a whopping 22%. Weapons of many of these companies are now in the battlefields of Ukraine. I'm talking about lethal equipment like Switchblade drones, armored and tactical vehicles, howitzers, javelin missiles, and thousands of rifles, pistols, machine guns, and shotguns. Since the war began, America has committed over $3 billion in weapons in Ukraine, but almost all of it came from existing American government stockpiles. Recently, we even saw some correction in stock prices of defense companies, but make no mistake, weapons contractors will emerge as the big winners of this war. Of course, with some help from the US government. In April, there was a classified meeting at the Pentagon. The US defense...
Yeah. One more. Wait a minute. Discuss.
"9/11. These numbers tell a story. 2,996 deaths and 6,000 injuries. 9/11 changed America forever. But you've heard this before, numerous times in the last 48 hours. So why not tell you something that you haven't heard? Like how America used 9/11 as a smokescreen. How Washington assaulted human rights in the name of its war on terror. How America expanded its military presence in the name of peace. Why not tell you about the real legacy of 9/11? This story too can be told in just numbers. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. And these are the countries in which America conducted counter-terrorism operations in just the last 2 years. The US struck Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria and Yemen with drones. The US engaged in combat in Kenya, Mali, Nigeria and a total of 12 countries. The US conducted military exercises in 41 countries and counter-terrorism training in 79 countries. All of this between 2018 and 2020, and all of this on the pretext of the global war on terror. It's a war that US President George W. Bush began in the days following 9/11. The attacks killed 2,996 people. The war killed around 929,000 people. 929,000. 100 times the casualty of 9/11? Try 300. 300 times. Civilians were killed by America's post-9/11 wars. Among them were journalists, humanitarian aid workers, contractors, at least 8,000 of them. And of course, troops. 7,000 American troops died in the post-9/11 wars. 73,000 Allied troops died in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and more than 100,000 in Iraq and Syria. So what exactly happened in the last 20 years? The US invaded two countries, Afghanistan and Iraq. America ransacked the lives of 40 million Iraqis in its futile hunt for weapons of mass destruction. They were never found. In Afghanistan, after 20 years of assault, the US left 39 million Afghans at the mercy of the Taliban. The same Taliban that the US had set out to fight. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda, aka the group behind the 9/11 attacks, remains more resilient than ever. Its affiliates have stationed themselves in 17 countries across Africa, Asia and West Asia. So what exactly was America doing in the last 20 years? Killing civilians, displacing them. American presidents waged wars on constitutional checks and balances, fighting human rights at home, and of course furthering their agenda in the name of the war on terror. Let's look at the collateral damage. America's post-9/11 wars killed 335,000 civilians in 5 countries: Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Pakistan and Yemen. In Afghanistan, the US was as deadly as the terror groups it was fighting. And I'll give you an example. Between 2017 and 2019, the Taliban and the ISI killed an average of 2,071 Afghans every year. America and its allies killed 1,134 civilians every year by airstrikes alone. American tanks and troops not only killed people but also displaced them. In the last 20 years, American troops entered countries, uprooted people, forced families to leave their homes and migrate to alien lands. 38 million people were displaced, 38 million, as a result of America's post-9/11 wars. 5.9 million people were displaced in Afghanistan, 3.7 million in Pakistan, 4.6 million in Yemen, 4.3 million in Somalia, 1.8 million people in the Philippines, 9.2 million in Iraq, 1.2 in Libya, and 7.1 million people in Syria. The total exceeds the number of people displaced by every war since 1900 except the Second World War. Some people died, some were displaced. Those who chose to stay behind were pushed into poverty. Again, let's consider the case of Afghanistan. 6 out of 10 Afghans live in poverty. The GDP per capita is some $500 per year. The US spent 20 years and claims to have spent upwards of $3 trillion in Afghanistan. What it really did was destroy property, economy and hopes in Afghanistan, all in the name of the war on terror. These wars did not even benefit Americans. Many were illegally kidnapped, detained and tortured. Many were termed enemy combatants. Let me give you a figure. At least 720,000 people were put on a no-fly list. What for? Random reasons. Senator Ted Kennedy once found himself featured on the list, while the real perpetrators of 9/11 found themselves without any sentence. Did you know that the mastermind of the attacks, Khalil Sheikh Mohammed and 4 others, are still undergoing trial in the US? It's been 20 years, 15 since the 5 of them arrived at America's Guantanamo prison. Tell me one thing. How does a state respond to a crime? By bringing the perpetrators to justice, right? America did wage a war, but forgot to try the perpetrators. George Bush knew where Osama bin Laden was. He chose to invade Iraq instead, not Pakistan. Barack Obama then had Osama bin Laden killed just in time for re-election. Donald Trump promised to get troops back home and won an election. The three presidents, they are the real winners of this war. Bush ensured that starting with him, all American presidents had the right to wage a war without bothering with the consent of the Congress. Only 56 current members of the House and 16 senators were present during the 2001 vote. The bill they passed was used by Bush and his successors to join wars in at least 14 countries in the name of fighting jihad. In the last 20 years, the Pentagon spending has gone up at least 50%. Reports say every hour American taxpayers are paying $32 million towards the cost of post-9/11 wars. What has the world achieved? With all the funds and fighting, there is no peace in America, none in Afghanistan, neither in West Asia. Jihad has found a new home ground in Africa. Terrorists have found themselves in cabinet berths. And the United States found itself with more enemies than before. 4 presidents, 20 years, immeasurable damage, and nothing to show for it. What happened, America? You know, we chose not to raise this question yesterday out of respect for the victims of 9/11 and the loved ones they left behind. 9/11 was life-changing. There is no denying it. America has the right to avenge 9/11. There is no denying that either. But could they have done things differently? Perhaps. The victims of 9/11 deserve justice, as do the innocents who have been killed and scarred by America's 9/11 wars. 20 years ago, America tweaked the Holocaust mantra and said, never forget. The world has not forgotten 9/11. Washington, too, should not forget that it had set out to fight terror, not add to it.
War in itself is not wrong, but the thing is, why war is being fought? If war is fought to get more resources for sense gratification, or if war is fought to protect one's own sense gratification, so or to destroy others' sense gratification, so that is wrong. War can be fought for the sake of dharma, for sake of protecting dharma, or sometimes for sake of correcting dharma, etc. Even during Mahabharata times, or even like kings like Pratapadra and all, they also had weapons, they also have trained soldiers and all, but the purpose is different. So that is what Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport. Yes, Matas, you can read. Sri Ishopanishad warns us.
The Ishopanishad warns us of this faulty type of education, and the Bhagavad Gita gives instructions as to the development of real knowledge. This mantra states that the instructions of Vidya, knowledge, must be acquired from a dhira. A dhira is one who is not disturbed by material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. Adhira realizes that the material body and mind he has acquired by chance through material association are but foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of a bad bargain.
Yeah. So Prabhupada will explain further why we have to learn from Dhira. But in essence, like otherwise, if people have material desires and all, so they will teach education for material desires, for material gains. If somebody is freed from, somebody is materially detached, then he will teach education for really helping people or helping society. Yeah, before that, of course, could have kept it before. So ways, maybe I'll just do it there. Just a minute. Yeah, so some ways to protect from the onslaught of modern education is to develop detachment and purity, through devotional service. So one will in that way reduce interaction with the material world and pursuing material things in life. And another is to cultivate Sattva so that one will have clarity of what is wrong and what is right and wrong. Even though one does not have the detachment, but one has the knowledge. And Sattva also teaches, gives the ability to discriminate what is right and wrong. So, so that can be done by hearing from devotees and intellectual scholars who analyze the modern world from a Vedic point of view. So at least knowledge will be there. So that way one can understand what even one has to learn some avidya or be exposed to modern education. One can understand what to take from it and what to reject from it. Or and also adopt Vedic lifestyle, using Ayurveda and yoga and all, because yeah, so they're more holistic. Means they integrate also spiritual growth with material growth or with physical growth, all these things. With good health, they also integrate good spiritual health. So that is more holistic. So, and also like consult devotee specialists instead of outside professionals. So outside professionals, they don't understand the importance of spiritual life. So if somebody has insomnia, they say, don't get up in the morning and all. They may give such suggestions. But a devotee specialist, he may tell properly, like how to also keep spiritual life intact and also improve the doing the needful with material life. And social media, uh, like avoid it. It's avoid passing time on social media. It should not be a recreation. Social media should not be a source of recreation. So for that, one can keep oneself busy and focused in devotional service and prescribed duties. And social media should not be used for passing time or socializing also. That can be done more in person. And if if one has to use social media, it can be used for education. So to learn something or all that. So it is always important that one should always keep learning something. That leads to growth. Education is necessary to growth. So Chanakya Pandit says, an uneducated man, no matter how good he may look, or to what Mathas, can you read this? An uneducated man.
An uneducated man, no matter how good he may look or to what family he may belong, he is as useless as the flower that has color but no fragrance. He says status of family and physical beauty add no significance to one's personality and they should never be rested upon. Only education attributes strength, character, knowledge, and virtues to one's personality.
Yeah,
Chanakya metaphorically compares knowledge to a cow and says that just as a mother protects her child in the same way, knowledge saves a person in difficult situations. Even in the most adverse times, a knowledgeable person, through his wisdom, can handle all and carve out a way for himself. The learned Acharya says that as we gather each drop of water while filling the pitcher pot, the same way we must accumulate more and more knowledge, faith, dharma, and wealth too. In the long term, this builds into a massive treasure which benefits us all through life.
Yeah, thank you. So that's what education is important. Even materially also, those who are very successful people, they're avid readers. They have some regulations to read so many books every month. Like Bill Gates reads, I think 20 books every month or something. So even in it is important even for spirit material life, this kind regular study and all is important. So spiritual life, it is all the more important because the modern education is Maya's more strong. So that's why it is important. No? Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, it is told like that. And yeah, like Kal Chakra Krishna process, study makes you study in devotional service. So that way. And we may not have taste to only read only devotional things like Bhagavatam all the time, or every time, or all the day, throughout the day, and every day. It is important that we should read for a certain time on a regular basis, if possible every day. But along with that, you can also learn uh, something related to improving our services, or maybe some life skills like relationships, communication, conflict resolution, parenting, that may help in devotional service or prescribed duties. So that way, if we don't invest the drive for learning consciously in a positive way, otherwise one may end up learning some things in social media which may not be useful, and which may be also against devotional service, etc. Okay, you have a review of this. Yes, Mata, you can read this paragraph, the material body and mind.
The material body and mind are bad bargains for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as the living spiritual sparks manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead world appears to be a living world. Actually, it is the living souls, the parts and parcel of the supreme living being, who move the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulative principles.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So for following knowledge, for acquiring knowledge, sense control is important. So like this shloka of Bhagavad Gita says, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparaha samyate indriya. Jnanam labdva param shantim acharyanadi gacchati. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. So then only one becomes eligible, sense control. And having achieved, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So one may think that no, both are not connected, but both are connected, especially in case of spiritual knowledge. So when there is spiritual knowledge, think here, spiritual knowledge is more. Spiritual knowledge, and one is practicing sense control and one is practicing spirituality. So then one will get proper understanding and realization, and then one will also be able to apply it properly. Otherwise, if there is a spiritual knowledge one has, but he does not have any sense control, and he's not practicing any spirituality, so then he may have improper understanding and realization, because he will, unless you practice something, you will not understand it properly, what exactly it is and all. And he may use it also for improper usage, like they may recite Bhagavatam for earning money, or they may recite the pastimes of Krishna with gopis as a means of recreation, or all these things. We will see one example also, what can happen. Yes, Mataji, can continue to follow the regulative principles.
Follow the regulative principles, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. The transcendental message and regulative principles come down from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such knowledge does not come in the hazardous way of nescient education. One can become a dhira only by submissively hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Arjuna, for example, became a dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead himself. Thus, the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as the Lord himself. This is the process of learning Vidya, knowledge, from the dhira, the undisturbed.
Yeah, continue.
An adhira, one who has not undergone the training of a dhira, cannot be an instructive leader. Modern politicians who pose themselves as dhiras are actually adhiras, and one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. They are simply busy seeing to their own remuneration in dollars and cents. How then can they lead the mass of people to the right path of self-realization? Thus, one must hear submissively from a Gira in order to attain actual education.
Yeah. So one example of an adhira is knowledge without sense control is this Osho example. So earlier he has he used to speak based on Vedas and all, but he had done something wrong, and then overnight he changed the philosophy. So now he gives a philosophy like from Sambhog to Samadhi. So, this thing is, you do sense gratification, then immediately, eventually, you'll get frustrated and you will, seek spirituality, etc. Yeah. So just an example of the sadhana they prescribe. So first, the meditator engages in 10 minutes of rapid breathing through the nose. The second 10 minutes are for catharsis. Let whatever is happening happen. Laugh, shout, scream, jump, shake, whatever you feel to do, do it. Next, for 10 minutes, one jumps up and down with arms raised, shouting who. Each time one lands on the flat of the feet. At the fourth silent stage, the meditator stops moving suddenly and totally, remaining completely motionless for 15 minutes, witnessing everything that is happening. The last stage of the meditation consists of 15 minutes of dancing and celebration. So that's what this is. This doesn't have any precedent in the Shastra. This appears more like some kind of sattvic or even passionate thing being quoted as spirituality. So this is an example of they're simply busy seeing to their own remuneration in dollars and cents and give some kind of so-called experience to the people. So that is what happens if one does not find sense control. But if you see Prabhupada is very clear. He is very clear in practically in every lecture, every purport, no, how sense gratification is miserable. Because he is not after followers, he's not after the money he gets from the followers, the money after for selling books. He's very clear. He wants to spread the message of Bhagavatam to benefit people and to please the Parampara and Krishna. Yeah. And also if one cannot speak also, if one is not following himself, he cannot speak it also. Another statistic is the average American congregation of 400 persons with women representing on average 60% of the congregation. There are an average of 7 women who have experienced clergy sexual misconduct. So among every 240 women, around 7 women have this kind of experience from the clergy. Clergy means those who are priests, who are celibates in Christianity. Yeah. And who are in leadership position, in some kind of leadership position. So, yeah, in the verse we saw about Vidya, the benefits of Vidya, the aspects of Vidya from Bhagavad Gita. And then about Avidya, so we saw the song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how it is a burden. And Prabhupada told about its various problems it creating in the world. First is the rejection of authority. Second is the nationalism. Third is the war, and which has become a business model instead of a means for protecting or spreading dharma. And then he also spoke about. Then we saw the Prabhupada spoke about the importance of dhira. So that even though the transcendental knowledge, even vidya, but vidya also has to be uh, taken from a dhira, not an adhira. If again, if it is adhira, then it can become like the what we saw in the first shloka. It can be some sense gratification. It can be polluted, and one may not receive it also properly in the right way. Okay. So any questions on this shloka? Anyone? Okay, we will proceed to the next shloka. So next shloka, it tells again about material knowledge and spiritual knowledge, how there should be a balance. So here avidya does not refer to nescience, but something knowledge about the material world. Okay, when we'll, I think, yeah, we can distinguish. So, see, nescience refers mainly to that which tells that material enjoyment is the purpose of life. Material enjoyment is the most valuable thing in life. So that is nescience. That is one meaning of avidya, which means nescience, and nescience means this. And another way, avidya can mean knowledge about the material world, like how to earn, how to eat, how to know which food to eat, which not to eat. So that is something essential as long as one is functioning in the material world, and one has a material body. So this material knowledge is needed. So so that is what this will be discussed in the purport. Okay. Mata, you can recite after me. Vidyam cha yas tad vedo bhayam saha.
Vidyam cha yes tad vedo bhayam saha.
Avidyaya mrityam tirtva vidyaya amritam ashnute.
Avidyayam mrityum tirtva vidyayam mritam ashnute.
Yeah. So both have their own roles. Through avidya, which is material knowledge, but given from a Vedic God-centered knowledge of the material world. Through that, one can get detached from the world, and through the knowledge of God, one can attain God. So that is this knowledge. The translation: only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Vidya is transcendental knowledge, and avidya is material knowledge with the purpose of developing detachment. Yes, Mataji, you can read the purport.
Since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life. But the laws of nature are so cruel that no one has been able to avoid the hand of death. No one wants to die, nor does anyone want to become old or diseased. The law of nature, however, does not allow anyone immunity from old age, disease, or death. Nor has the advancement of material knowledge solved these problems. Material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from the cruel hands of old age, disease, and death. From the Puranas, we learn of the activities of Hiranyakashipu, a king who was very much advanced materially. Wanting to conquer cruel death by his material acquisitions and the strength of his nescience, he underwent a type of meditation so severe that the inhabitants of all the planetary systems became disturbed by his mystic powers. He forced the creator of the universe, the demigod Brahma, to come down to him. He then asked Brahma for the benediction of becoming Amara, by which one does not die. Brahma said that he could not avoid the benediction because even he, the material creator who rules all planets, is not Amar. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.17, Brahma lives a long time, but that does not mean he is immortal. Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft bed. This cunning gentleman, Hiranyakashipu, was interested in these two things, money and women, and he wanted to enjoy them by becoming immortal. He asked from Brahma many benedictions in hopes of indirectly fulfilling his desire to become immortal. Since Brahma told him that he could not grant the gift of immortality, Hiranyakashipu requested that he not be killed by any man, animal, god, or any other living being within the 84 lakh species. He also asked that he not die on land, in the air or water, or by any weapon. In this way, Hiranyakashipu foolishly thought these guarantees would save him from death. Ultimately, however, although Brahma granted him all these benedictions, he was killed by the personality of Godhead in the form of Narsimha, the Lord's half lion, half man incarnation, and no weapon was used to kill him, for he was killed by the Lord's nails. Nor was he killed on the land, in the air, or in the water, for he was killed on the lap of that wonderful living being Nrsimha, who was beyond his conception. The whole point here is that even Hiranyakashipu, the most powerful of materialists, could not become deathless by his various plans. What then can be accomplished by the tiny Hiranyakashipus of today, whose plans are thwarted from moment to moment?
Okay. Yeah. So we see that Hiranyakashipu first he performed very difficult tapasya, because since now this section is only going on, so uh, means the most difficult tapasya described in Shastras is performed by Hiranyakashipu. Like Dhruva Maharaj only performed for 6 months, but Hiranyakashipu performed for I think 1,000 celestial years. So very difficult tapasya. And he's also standing on one leg, and his whole body is eaten by worms and insects, but still he performed it. And he used his best of his intelligence to ask benediction to Brahma, so that he can uh, get immortality. So he has the best intelligence, and he has also the best renunciation. He has the best resilience, or power, means the power to do austerity, etc. Determination. He has the best determination. He has the best intelligence, and he has also the best strength. So he has that, and he tried to escape from death. He tried to avoid death, but he could not avoid death. So then, what is the point in trying to avoid death? So that one. We'll see how we are actually, many of the activities which the materialists do are in one way trying to avoid death. Yes, Mataji, can read.
The Ishopanishad instructs us not to make one-sided attempts to win the struggle for existence. Everyone is struggling hard for existence, but the laws of material nature are so hard and fast that they do not allow anyone to surpass them. In order to attain a permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, so you can take maybe around 7 minutes, and you can think about these things. What people in general, the people outside, they do to prolong lifespan, or to look young, and to forget that they are old, and then to also ensure endless security in future. So you can think, and then we will discuss. 7 minutes. Yes, so what do people do for the first one to prolong their lifespan? Yes, Sharyu Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. People generally do uh, medical checkups after 6 months or by 1 year. They also do many physical activities such as exercise. They also maintain the healthy diet.
Okay. Yes, yes.
That's it.
Thank you. Okay. Sanatan Gopal Prabhu.
Prabhu, yoga and therapies with the intention to uh, increase the lifespan.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe one more will take. Ashish Prabhu.
Too much of these complex medication to improve their senses. So I would rather say that uh, the compliments they take for
Supplements.
yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, Swati Mataji, you can also take.
Yes, Prabhuji. So the people they undergo organ transplants like kidney transplant, heart transplant
Okay.
to prolong their lifespan.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay. Thank you. Yeah. So we see that a lot. There are many ways to try. So that they will not, they will live for more time. Okay. Next. Okay, what all people do to look young, especially old people means, or those who are not young. Okay, Mahadev Keshav Prabhu.
Basically the people do this like hair dye, go to the beauty parlor, use different this was cosmetic so that they can hide the old age.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Next, Soumya Mataji.
Prabhuji, nowadays, for everything is available. Like you have less hair, then you can have extra. You can put some wig and all, and then beauty surgeries like Botox and all those things,
Okay.
and like makeup and all those things.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Pratik Prabhu, Mataji, you want to say?
No project is covered.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, Sherry Mataji.
Yes, generally people are used to take many vitamins such as omega-3 and vitamin E, D
Yeah.
to look young.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So we see also to look young or to hide their old age, they do a lot physically to hide that they're old physically. Next. Okay. Now to forget that they're old means yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Okay, Soumya Mataji.
Prabhuji, nowadays people don't means most of the people they don't know the purpose of life. So here I see that the old people. I stay here in UK, near London. So here they play tennis. They are very health conscious,
Yeah.
and they are going for walk, but still the purpose is missing. So everything seems futile. So in
Okay.
such old age they are playing tennis, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it just bewilders me.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sanatan Gopal Prabhu.
Prabhu, I think related to what Mataji said, the lifestyle overall, they try to manipulate the lifestyle in a way that they forget that, having making certain groups who will do certain activities to forget that they are old, and also the dresses, the kind of dresses they will try to adopt to hide, to forget rather, not really hide, to forget, then they themselves would like to forget.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, they try to dress as if they are young and like that. Okay. Okay,
And
Vrajpati.
going for certain activities. Yeah.
Yeah, they have different types of clubs, laughing clubs and some Lions club, and they have some charity activities.
Yeah,
So they're engaged in the like young people. They are doing some work.
yeah.
So different associations they will have. They spend the time.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Balraj Prabhu.
Okay, I don't know. It's like a weird answer, but this came to me. Like we've seen like no very old people getting married also to
Okay.
young people.
It
It's
happens. It
foreign
happens in America and a lot. Okay. Okay. Mahadev Keshav Prabhu.
Prabhuji, this example is a very hard example. Prabhupada told in one of the lecture or one of the books I ever heard
Yeah,
that
really
the older people is uses the animals organs to improve their sex lives and all these things.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Okay. Now further D. Okay. Anish Prabhu.
People take health insurance or life insurance so they get that sense of security.
Okay. Yeah. They have to pay a lot of premium and don't know means whether it will really help them or not. It may go waste. Yeah. Okay. Soumya Mataji.
Prabhuji, same like what Anish Prabhu told. This pension program, you can invest now and you will get after 60 years. Like Prabhupada mentioned, post-dated check. So
Yeah.
we don't know that we are going to live for 60 years also. We don't know that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Sanatan Gopal Prabhu.
Prabhu, first of all, like forgetting, like not putting a limit only to stop the accumulation, investing on the schemes, like making the children to settle, but that they keep pushing the goal post actually further and further and keep trying for different schemes, accumulation ideas.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes they're so much focused on saving it that they may not even spend it and not
Yes.
to enjoy it, means to have some happiness in the present.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what as Prabhupada said, that there is a lot of effort, lot of resources spent on trying to avoid death, or at least trying to prolong death, means trying to postpone death, or trying to have imagine oneself that no one will not die, or like this. So a lot of effort and resources are going. So for example, the funding on aging research. Aging research means the research to try some means to slow old age or stop old age altogether is annually $6.3 billion, which is 51,000 crores Indian rupees in just only in America, but maybe more in other countries also. And also it is said Walt Disney, for example, he preserved his body in a freezer, so that deep freezer for some time, so that if the scientists can uh, discover some ways to reverse death, his he can be restored to life. Yes, Anish, you want to say something?
Bridget, there was a singer, Michael Jackson, who wanted to live for like 200 years or something. So he had like the best team of doctors and he had done many surgeries. And even after doing so much, he died at 50 years, which is less than even the average person.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So Prabhupada is basically explaining here the third and fourth line, where the verse itself says, use the material knowledge to cross this world. So Prabhupada is emphasizing on how there is a lot of effort to just stay in this world, but that is not going to work. So one should understand that one has to cross this world. So one cannot stay in this world for long. Yes, Mataji, you can continue the process by which one goes back to God.
Puji, can I continue from here?
Yes. Okay.
The process by which one goes back to Godhead is a different branch of knowledge, and it has to be learned from revealed Vedic scriptures such as the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. To become happy in this life and attain a permanent blissful life after leaving this material body, one must study this sacred literature and obtain transcendental knowledge. The conditioned living being has forgotten his eternal relationship with God and has mistakenly accepted the temporary place of his birth as all in all. The Lord has kindly delivered the above mentioned scriptures in India and other scriptures in other countries to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity and he can be happy only by returning to his spiritual home.
Yeah. So it is said that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are actually spiritual beings having a human experience. And also it is said that this body is not all in all. There is Atma, or there is soul. And this life is not all in all. There is next life. And this world is not all in all. There is spiritual world. So it's like that. Yes, you can continue from his kingdom.
From his kingdom, the personality of Godhead sends his bona fide servants to propagate this message by which one can return to Godhead, and sometimes the Lord comes himself to do this work. Since all living beings are his beloved sons, his parts and parcels, God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the sufferings we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of Vidya or transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called a Naradhama, the lowest of human beings.
Yeah, so Prabhupada is saying that incompatibility with dead matter. So the Atma, it has an unlimited, it has a desire for eternality. That is the nature of Atma. But the body is temporary. And the Atma wants to experience unlimited happiness. And pure happiness means happiness that is not mixed with suffering. But the body, any activity with body, any activity to enjoy through the body, it may give some pleasure, but it also comes with pain, or sometimes a lot of pain and less pleasure. And it is always limited. Whatever activity, even eating food, there is always a limit on how much one can digest the food and how much one can eat, and all. Like if somebody wants to see something beautiful, again, one cannot do it all 24 hours. So always there is always a limitation on how one can in trying to experience through body. So that way there is an incompatibility between the Atma and the body. And yeah, again, Prabhupada is writing that Krishna knows that in this material world, the living entity cannot be happy. And so that's why Krishna sends his Krishna is more sorry. God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the sufferings we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. So he sends his representatives to spread this spiritual knowledge. Okay, you can continue, bro. The path of avidya.
The path of avidya, or advancement of material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul, the body. Death is compared to the taking off, and the birth to the putting on of outward garments. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya, in science, do not mind this cruel process. Enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature.
Like if you see, people are not afraid of death in a spiritual sense. They are afraid that their material sense gratification will stop. They are not afraid of death in a spiritual sense. No, what body I will get, or again I have to get a human body, and no, again I have to go through all the pains of childhood or education and all. So that's why they want to avoid death. No, they don't have the spiritual perspective. They have only their material perspective, because death means it's a stop for my sense gratification. That's why they don't want death. So they are not afraid of death in that no spiritual sense. Now devotees may be afraid of death. Afraid means they may be concerned about no, okay, death is coming. No, will I be able to remember Krishna at the time of death? Or no, what body will I be able to practice Krishna consciousness? Will I get a good opportunity to continue my Krishna consciousness in the next life? So those concerns a devotee may have or a spiritualist may have. But material, they may have some concerns about that health, but they are realistic concerns. But the materialist thinks, okay, my sense gratification is going to stop. So that is the problem. So basically, they are enamored by the beauty of the illusory energy. And they think that's what this material energy, this material happiness is only all in all. So they want it more and more. And so that's why their desires at the time of death are also more about material happiness. So again, they get material body on. So in that way, they go on repeatedly in this cycle of birth and death. Yes, Prabhu can read.
Therefore, the culture of Vidya or transcendental knowledge is essential for the human being. The sense enjoyment is the diseased material condition must be restricted as far as possible. Unrestricted sense enjoyment in this bodily condition is the path of ignorance and death. The living entities are not without spiritual senses. Every living being in his original spiritual form has all the senses, which are now materially manifested, being covered by the material body and mind. The activities of the material senses are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. In his diseased condition, the spirit soul engages in material activities under the material covering. Real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. In our pure spiritual form, free from all material contamination, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. A patient must regain his health before he can truly enjoy sense pleasure again. Thus, the aim of human life should not be to enjoy perverted sense gratification, but to cure the material disease. Aggravation of the material disease is no sign of knowledge, but a sign of avidya, ignorance. For good health, a person should not increase his fever from 105 degrees to 107 degrees, but should reduce his temperature to the normal 98.6. That should be the aim of human life. The modern trend of material civilization is to increase the temperature of the feverish material condition, which has reached the point of 107 degrees in the form of atomic energy. Meanwhile, the foolish politicians are crying that at any moment the world may go to hell. That is a result of the advancement of material knowledge and the neglect of the most important part of life, the culture of spiritual knowledge. Shri Ishopanishad herein warns that we must follow this dangerous path leading to we must not follow this dangerous path leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we may become completely free from the cruel hands of death.
Yeah. So, so why sense gratification is a material disease? Because it it entangles one in the cycle of birth and death, and one will continue to suffer life after life. So that's why it is a disease. And so the solution is to have the spiritual knowledge. And that's what Prabhupada said. The real happiness can only be done in the through spiritual, in the through in the spiritual domain, in the spiritual realm, one can experience true happiness and proper happiness only in the spiritual realm. So the Atma, when it is trying to experience happiness in the material realm, it is suffering, and it will continue to suffer if it does not change its knowledge, and no, if it does not change. So, so that's why that's why material sense gratification is a disease, because it entangles the Atma, life after life. So that's why one should not try to increase it further. Yeah, because the Atma is in the body, it may need some kind of pleasure through body also. But one should not increase it further. Like earlier people were, means in the earlier times, people mostly they used to travel in train and all, and going on flight is a luxury, and people used to generally go for tourist places and all within India. But now the income level, and purchasing power, these all have increased. So now what? Same thing, like now people, they may travel for, in a normal way. It may be a new normal, like to travel in flight and all. But now people they want to travel in business class. They want to travel in higher classes within the flight. So they want to so that to show themselves, that they are rich, and they want to go visit foreign locations for tourists, so that again to show that they are rich. So the same mentality is going on, and now the effort is more. So they're still working, even if the economy level, income level has increased, but still they want to increase the fever further. So that's what Prabhupada is saying, that it should be made normal. It can be at normal level, and we should focus our energy on acquiring spiritual knowledge. So that is more important, because that will only solve this problem. Okay. So yeah, next Prabhupada will talk about the balance between the two. So that we'll discuss tomorrow. And then we'll go to the next slokas about the worship part. Okay, so thank you very much for your patient listening and participation. Shri Ishopanishad ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Jai Kalpatarubhya Shilpa Sandhya Patinam Pam Vaishnava